So I watched this video from the Bible Sojourner, centered entirely around understanding and defining this generation, Matthew 24:34. And I like that he broke it down into three understandings of what that phrase means. It either speaks of the generation that Christ is speaking to, and would therefore mean that the signs he'd already spoken about, or a majority of them, are going to be fulfilled in the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. Others say that he's speaking of this generation, but he's talking about the generation that sees these signs at some time in the future. And the third view is that this generation speaks of a group of people, and he's actually leaning into that, even though that's probably the weakest understanding. He was quoting a certain dissertation from someone who looked outside of scriptural sources that generation could be used of a people group, and I'd have to look to that and see what his main argumentation was. Now, his one critique was that the preterist, or he kept saying postmillennial, that they look to Matthew 24:34, define it that way, and then make that change the whole narrative. But if you take it step by step from chapter 23, you see that Jesus is alluding to the temple. He says, not what stone will be left upon the other. He's speaking of the second temple. The questions that are asked, when will these things be? When will be your coming and the end of the age? If you only see that as two questions, then they're still asking, when will these things be? When you're talking explicitly about the destruction of the second temple, of Herod's temple, as some have called it. And there are elements in the first 34 verses that do not make sense in an end-of-the-world scenario. Pray that the Lord doesn't return when someone's pregnant, or if it's on the Sabbath, or in the winter. Like, what does that have to do with anything? If you're trying to escape the destruction of Jerusalem, then it makes perfect sense. Again, I hope this was helpful. If you have any other questions or anything you want me to address, then let me know.